This is Radio Cairo, and we are coming from Studio 3. My name is Dr. Amr MABROuk. Dua Muhammad is at the control, and this is World of Info. Today is the world of books, and today we are presenting two books which are really of a great interest. I believe that they should be read. The first book is a very new book that has been just produced in 2024, and it is by the famous anchor lady, Hala Gourani. It's called But You Don't Look Like an Arab. And yes, the second book is another interesting book which talks about Victoria College, and it is really by an interesting book by Dalia Asim talking about Victoria College, how it was established in Alexandria and had its own branch in Cairo the other way around, not to start in Cairo but to start in Alexandria. Really two interesting books that deserves to be read. But let's start away with this book of Hala Gourani. But You Don't Look Like an Arab. And this definitely summarizes the idea of the book. Because Hala Gourani is a very famous anchor lady who has worked in the CNN. And she's well known for having her own show in CNN and with Hala Gourani, and also with her interviews that she had with a lot or almost all of the famous world leaders. And also, she has been working as a very common face seen by everyone in a household. Anybody who's watching CNN used to see Hala Gourani, and her face became so familiar with the viewers all over the world. However, this was CNN International, which is not the CNN local or the national one, which is for a lot of Americans is the prime thing, because this is what the Americans watch. Americans watch CNN national, while CNN International is watched by the rest of the world, not the Americans. So, who's really Hala Gourani? Hala Gourani was born in 1970 in the United States of America of two Syrian parents. Her father, Basha, in a family from a family called Basha, and her mother from a family called Gourani. And this is an interesting family because although she has lived between the United States and Algeria for some time, but after the separation of her parents, she lived with her mother, who went to live in France. So for her, French language is almost like her first tongue. So, uh, what did she graduate from? She has graduated from an American university in DC, a quite known university, and then went to the School of Science Politique and graduated from it in 1995. And this is one of the most prestigious colleges of political science that are definitely the best shot for any diplomat or a politician, a French politician, to graduate from that. And after that, he would have a degree from the technical or from the administrative institute, which is also another higher degree. So she got accepted in this science politique, and she failed to go to the school of the journalism. And this was an important point to talk about. So let's talk first about the family of Hala Gourani. Her great grandmother was a sort of uh, a lady who has been abducted and sold as a slave. Imagine that. In most probably she came from Abkhazia, and she was stolen from her family and sold as a slave. But she went to be a concubine into the harem of the great sultan. The harem of the sultan usually is this is a very interesting career, because at that time either the sultan would pick them as a wife, or they would be given up as a wife for important dignitaries working in the palace or working with the sultan himself. And so her great grandmother was given to be wedded to one of the important governors from a Syrian origin, and his name was Gourani. And this gentleman married this lady, and they lived in Aleppo. And he has built a grand house that she has called the Beit el Kabir. And from this house, this family had many children. And of these children, there was a boy, a lady, another lady who was born, and then another boy was born, who is the grandfather uh, of Hala Gorani. And this man in particular was studied law and coming from a very good family became a judge, and later on, after the independence of Syria, became a minister and a prime minister after the independence of Syria. So she's coming from a special family. Her grandfather and grandmother had daughters and sons, and her mother was one of them, and her name was Noor. Noor got married to a Syrian, when coming from a well-known family, and they immigrated, both of them, to the United States of America in the 60s. And there she gave birth to a son and a daughter. The daughter, Hala, was born in 1970. She lived with her family in Missouri, state of Missouri, for some time, and then her father, who was an engineer, got a contract to work in Algiers, where he took the family for 2 years in Algiers. After that, the mother got a divorce from her father and took the children to live in France, where she took up the French language, went to very distinguished schools, and her mother married again to a gentleman by the name of Amr, and he was very well bred, sent to very special schools and even to a boarding school that she didn't enjoy very much, and she played truant from it, and therefore she was released from this school, and she went to a day school, not a boarding school. Living in Saint Louis, and then in Louis, and therefore after that, graduating, uh, she went for some time to live with her father, and later on she came back to France to live with her mother and her stepfather, and then she went to have her education in DC. Meanwhile, her father got married later on in the 1980s, and he had 4 children from the new marriage, 2 daughters and 2 sons. Now she became very much interested in writing and become a journalist. She graduated from an American university in DC, where she had a degree in political science. She applied for another degree in journalism, but she failed to have that, and she succeeded in going to the School of Science Politique, which was a very prestigious school, as we have mentioned. Then she started working in a French channel, as a writer and a secretary. And she said that after some time, she approached the director and said to him, "I want to get a promotion to become an anchor lady or a journalist in this establishment." And he told her very rudely that since she doesn't have a degree in journalism, her career as a journalist in France will never happen, and therefore she will never ever find a post as a journalist, since she doesn't have a degree from journalism. Of course, this was a big shock to her. She started applying for different posts for journals and for TV channels, and she failed to get any interview even. Her friends told her there might be a mistake, because all the CVs that you are sending, you are emphasizing your Arab descendancy, and that you are in your name is Arab. Although, and therefore, a lot of discrimination could happen because of that, and people would not prefer to have an Arab journalist or an Arab anchor lady working with them. So she was very skeptical of this opinion, being a very blonde young lady, a very pretty one as well, with green eyes and blonde face. So she thought cannot be like that. And then she decided to change her way of applying, not mentioning that she speaks Arabic, and writing the name of her mother's family and skipping the name of her father. Because when she writes Hala Basha, everybody knows that this is from Arab descendancy. So when she took the name of her mother and changed her name to Hala Basha Gorani and then kept this name, of course, in her passports, but she skipped the word Basha in her application for CVs, in her CV. And her friends told her this Hala Gorani could fit in any language. She could be Serbian, she could be Yugoslav, she could be Bulgarian, so she would find a post. And actually, this is what happened. She simply got a post. And where is that post? This is a very interesting thing to have a post in a very well-established new channel, and in Bloomberg in 1995, she got an interview, and she was hired as an anchor lady and a journalist. She was stunned, and she started working because Bloomberg channel was built by a man by the name of Bloomberg, and he wanted to broadcast from London, sending his broadcast to France, and he was glad to have a bilingual anchor lady having the talent to know and background to speak English and to speak French. She worked in 1995 for some time, and she got really interested in her work. Her work and her time hours was in London was very hectic, and therefore she wanted to find another job. And she started applying for CNN, and strange enough, she got accepted in CNN International. And she started working in CNN International and reaching to work even in a, beside working as an anchor lady for some time. Then she found a chance to work with programs, especially in business, like, for example, working with Richard Quest, who was a very famous anchor person in CNN International in London. Very hectic work because she had to start in the very early morning in London because of the difference in timetable between in the time zones between London and the United States. But she started to gain a lot of audience working with Quest, who she admired very much as a professional gentleman, and she started to prove herself. Working in this work and in the business in this business program, still she wanted to become an anchor person and as a correspondent in the points and in the times of hazards. And she wanted very much to find a post as a correspondent in international disasters, as they say, or in hot regions, to start to fill in her hobby and her ambition to become that important in going in these fields. However, it took some time to prove herself, and later on she was able to find a post as a CNN correspondent. And this was the start of her career. Working as this correspondent, she told us about women in broadcasting, and said that not every person is like Christiane Amanpour, who is very sharp and is very eloquent. And when she demands something from her superiors, she's able to get whatever she wants from her extreme professionalism. And she said that I was not that eloquent in my application for promotion to work as an anchor person or as a correspondent in all over a lot of places, and therefore it took some time for her to grasp this problem, and by time she was giving the chance to work in Washington D.C. and between Washington and Atlanta and Georgia, and she started having assignments abroad, and these assignments abroad had her really to go into different places. She has been to Baghdad after the American invasion, of course, and lived in the Green Zone and had her own program where her environmental talks with the Iraqis. And she lived in Beirut in 2006 during the war between Hezbollah and Israelis. And she had her own trips to Syria because in her early childhood, she used to travel to Aleppo to see the rest of the family who were living still in Aleppo, and she has seen her grandmother, and therefore there she learned her language and had a lot of friends there, especially during summer vacations. But definitely, this was a very hectic way to have a relation with her own fatherland and motherland, that is Syria, because in the beginning she used to frequent that sometimes. And later on, when she became an anchor person, she started visiting Syria in 2006 to do a lot of programs and a lot of interviews. And she felt the grip of the power of Al Ba'ath Party and the grip of the intelligence service that were completely putting her under surveillance all through her time in Syria when she was working with CNN. She also had her tenure working as a correspondent in the whole of Middle East, whether this is in Jordan, where she attended some of the explosions that happened by chance when she was there, explosions of the hotels, and also she served in Egypt also as a correspondent. To tell you the truth, when I read this book and I thought that Hala Gourani, as an experienced journalist and an experienced anchor lady, will give us a lot of time and talk about her interviews and about the people that she has met. And definitely, this in her armamentarium or in her CV, she made interviews with the most famous rulers that are very common in Egypt. So, what we can say is, but actually, Hannah didn't give a lot of mention about the important people or the leaders of the world that she met, except very minimal talk about them. She was more interested to tell her ourselves or tell us about her own experience as a human being who lived between two worlds, who had her Arab descendancy, taking or carrying this Arab descendancy on her shoulder. Her idea that she was always treated as an Arab and a Muslim, although the fact that she is completely blonde, and that everybody would always ask her a question: You're Arab, you're a Muslim, so why are you not wearing a hijab? And this is very strange when she tells them that, why should I wear it? I mean, I'm a Muslim, really, but not all Muslims are wearing hijab. And this, she finds herself having this incredible talk among people who are of different races, who are always wanting to know more about her. How is it to be an Arab? And always the question is, but you don't look like an Arab. But they treat her in the end as an Arab. And she felt definitely many times that she has been uh, racially discriminated. Although in a channel like CNN, she was never abused racially or being told that you look like an Arab or you don't look like an Arab or these stuff. But everywhere in the world, wherever she goes, she would always be asked about her descendancy. Where did she live? From where are her family? What does she have of memories of Syria? Does she have a family in Syria or not? Where is her family now? All these strange questions are kept always as a sort of a challenge to her whenever she goes or wherever she goes in the world. And this, of course, has been definitely a great thing to happen, that she can always feel that this is very disturbing. And the second important point was her lack of security, or in a sense of security, of not being able to find the right partner in her life for quite a long time. Always she would enter, as she says, in her relations that are always incomplete, and she doesn't know how to blame anyone. Should she blame herself or blame the other side, the gentleman that she was a friend with? That her relation with them was never continued to a marriage until she got married late in her life when she was 45 years old. So this gives us an idea of the different styles that a person lives through, especially an immigrant. who always lives torn between two worlds. And the fact that she kept on coming back to the Middle East every now and then, or asked as a reference about the Middle East, or being told whether she is related to anyone in the world, or what type of relation she has. And her political point of view is always asked, and her religious point of view is always asked about, as if she is a reference. And this is has been for her a lot of being intimidated when people just pick her and say, "What do you think of this and what do you think of that?" While she is a professional anchor person. Usually, an anchor person is not entitled to tell his opinion or tell his point of view. So, this has kept her on the edge for many years. She reached the peak of her success in the years 2000 and 2010. And she has talked about in her beautiful book about things, for example, about the World Cup. When France won the World Cup in 1998, and Zinedine Zidane, the famous player who is from an Algerian descendancy and a French citizen, won the cup, and for a very few moments in the French history, these immigrants, who especially from Moroccan or from Algerian descendancy, were considered as real citizens of France. While later on, there has been again the sort of the problem of being a foreigner. She always say for herself that I'm coming from nowhere and I'm everywhere. So coming from nowhere and everywhere is a bit confusing for this lady. Being born in the United States, lived in France, and then went around the whole world and visiting her roots every now and then in the 70s and the early 80s, going to Aleppo and seeing the rest of her family, and then meeting a lot of Syrians, especially her distinguished aunt, who she considered to be her like a second mother of her, and her cousins who were very good friends to her. She always mixed and matched with them and thought that this is really very strange. And then she found her reconciliation after getting married, because when she got married, she invited all her relatives and her friends to attend the wedding, which was in Morocco. And she started building a bridge between her, the unbroken bridge between her and her father. And this is what happened when she started getting along with her father again, meeting her siblings who are 18 years younger than her. Yet she was able to build a sort of a friendship with them, being the four siblings that she didn't know, two girls and two boys. And she started having with her half sisters a lot of talks and a lot of walks, as they say. And she was able, after getting married and after being a bit relaxed, to find a way to face the aerophobia that she used to have in traveling. And this really helped her very much to recover the bad effect of phobia from traveling in aeroplanes. So looking back to her interviews, she said, what made me feel like the best thing to do in an interview is not as what she did in her early years, when she was very well prepared for the people who are she's interviewing and might ask them detailed questions. She said, then I learned that I should always ask elementary questions, not complicated ones, because these elementary questions are the ones definitely that will shed the light on the person who is interviewed, and at the same time give an idea to the listeners or to the viewers about this person and about what they need. Because basic information is very important to deliver a message, not sophisticated information. I think this is one of the things that you learn from the book, in spite of the fact that she was more concerned with her own life, with her own suffering, and with her own friendship, and with her own demons, if we may use the expression, and of the fact that she has come from nowhere and from everywhere makes her a very special person. She decided in the year 2022 to take sabbatical period to write this book. She has been helped by a lot of family members, and she has dedicated the book to her mother. And I believe that this book is a book that deserves to be read, an idea to be given about how a person can really uh, live between both worlds and at the same time find solace and find happiness in the end, in spite of the fact that he has been living in a very hectic life, going around and traveling around the whole world after news, and to get the satisfaction or the adrenaline purge from going to distant areas, to areas of trouble, and getting to meet people from these areas and to deliver a message to the public. This has been a part of her life and a part of her career and understanding. And I believe this is a very important point to, to understand and to feel when you read such a book. So, a book by Hala Gourani, the famous anchor person of CNN, but you don't look like an Arab. A book that definitely deserves to be read. Stay tuned to us with Radio Cairo and the world of books. So you're still listening to the world of info, and today is the world of books. My name is Dr. Amr MABROuk. Dua Muhammad is still at the control. And yes, the second book is an interesting book, and this book is called Victoria College. And really, this is a very interesting book because it talks about the Victoria College, a school that has been built in the early 20th century as to be a secular school teaching exactly looking and exactly performing like the public English schools in UK. And this is a very interesting idea, which had some people who were very much interested to do. Let's talk about the late 19th century. In the 19th century, in the year 1882, this was unfortunately the occupation of Egypt by the British. And after this, there came the High Commissioner, Lord Cromer. And Lord Cromer was the British High Commissioner in Egypt. And he had his own agenda. And his own agenda was that Egypt, as a semi colony of the British Empire, has a lot of debts that this country has to pay. So it is up to him that he started to say that we have to uh, rewrite the debts, and therefore we have to control the paying of the debts of Egypt in this period during Ismail Pasha, which has been into severe debts. And he decided that he is going to cut all the expenses. And one of the things that he wanted to cut the expenses of was education, unfortunately. He had a gentleman by the name of Dunlop to be the Inspector General of the Ministry of Education. And it was up to Mr. Dunlop, who was a very, should we say, having a lot of racial issues against Egyptians. And he decided that he would shut down a lot of schools and going with the policy of Lord Cromer. And unfortunately, he was always against building schools or even giving the chance for free education when he cancelled the free education in Egypt. When we look at this hard period, we find that Alexandria was seeing its real great, or the start of its real great days. Because Alexandria at that time was more than one city in one city. A lot of business people have taken Alexandria to be their home. They came from different parts of the world. which made Alexandria one of the cosmopolitan cities of the world, where people from different countries, whether these are from Europe or from Syria or from different parts of the world, coming to live in Egypt, invest their money, and live in Alexandria, which was a cosmopolitan state. We have at this period, they say that of the about 315,000 people living in Alexandria, there was about 40,000 of foreign language, foreign descendancy. They were, for example, 10,000 from Greece, 8,000 from Italy, and French were 6,000. The British were 4,800, and the Syrians were about 4,800. The Swiss and the Germans were about 2,200, and there was about 3,200 of different nationalities. Not all of these people were happy to send their children to learn into the missionary schools. At that time, there were missionary schools in Alexandria, like, for example, the San Mark, which is one of the missionary schools for boys, and a lot of other schools that were doing missionary work. Some people were refusing to send their children to these missionary schools, although they don't lack the amount of money that can be given as tuition fees for these schools. So these people met and decided that they will have to have an English school that is completely secular, and this school will be built to take up children with no discrimination of religion or race or whatever, and give them excellent education. So the start of the idea of this school was by a lot of people who in 1897 the Sir Charles Cookson, the General Council of Britain, met with Baron Mencha, who was also a very distinguished gentleman living in Alexandria and a very rich person, and of course Sir Henry Parker, the head of the British community in Alexandria, and who will then afterwards become the chairman of Victoria College for 30 years. And he is also the one who decided also as well to open the EGC, which is the English Girls School in Shotby, Alexandria. So he met with a lot of people at that time, and they decided that they are going to gather some sort of align some money and start building this school. They approached Lord Cromer, who was completely in denial and refused building this school. However, they went on for building the school and decided that they are going to build it in Alexandria, and it was near the eastern port of Alexandria. And they made this in public authority, and they decided to build that in 1900. The death of Queen Victoria in January of 1901 has made or forced the founders of the school to call it under her name, and they gathered a big amount of money, and they said they need more money. So they went to Lord Cromer, who refused to give them any money, and said to them, you start with a small school, you don't need to open a big school in the beginning. He was following the idea of Dunlop, and the idea of that he has to reduce the amount of money that is spent in education, and therefore he was not very anxious to build schools more to take up and give education even for the refined part of the population, or the people who can afford to spend money for educating their children. However, he decided to accept the idea in the end, and the school was opened in 1904. And Cromer attended this, and this was near the eastern eastern port of Alexandria. And at that time, they found out with the number of students applying that this area will not be enough for for taking up uh, the buildings and securing a huge school that everybody was aiming to build. So, after building this preliminary school in in the Azarita piece of land, they decided that they are going to build another place and to have it building them for them. And therefore, they have chosen a director of the school, Mr. Charles Lias, who was a graduate of King's College in Cambridge, to be the first director of Victoria College for 20 years, who was responsible for building this school and innovating it. Now, they decided that as the school got increased the number of the base of the children applying for this school, they decided to build another one with a huge piece of land in order to accommodate the number of students, and therefore they went to build a school in the area called the Siouf, which is about 18 acres of land, and they wanted to transfer the school to this area. Mr. Lias was a bit afraid that the students will get out of the school because this is a faraway place. They later on convinced him, and they start to build the school. And even the Alexandria tram decided to open a line from for the students that ends up in Victoria College, the new premises of Victoria College. So there we are in 1907. The school has been opened, and Lord Cromer came on the 24th of May 1906 to open up the school and to attend the inauguration of the building of this school. So this was 1906. 1904 they started the earlier school, and the second school started, or the school where it is nowadays up till now at 1906. This is quite interesting. So we are talking about Victoria College. Stay tuned with us at Radio Cairo as we go again and come back after the break. So you're still listening to the World of Info, and this is the World of Books, and today we're talking about Victoria College. And yes, this is a very distinguished school. As we have just mentioned, the school started in this area, and the tram has been reaching it, and therefore this was the start of a real organized education. A lot of people were living in the premises. A lot of students were living in the premises, especially the ones who are coming from other countries who were living in the boarding school. Also, some families has chosen that their children be raised and educated in their in the boarding school, even that they are living in Alexandria, because they wanted them to have the whole experience. The school started to be very highly organized from the very first moment. The teachers have been very carefully selected. A French teacher for the French language, an Arabic graduate from Al Azhar would even be taken from for educating the Arabic language, and all the different subjects are taught by very professional teachers. The same idea would go with the fact that the students feel to be belonging to the same school is very important, and therefore a Latin experience, Latin language, it was written that we are all together, we are one, and Victoria loyalists have been just taking for granted that they are the loyal Victorians later on when they graduate from Victoria College. The school went on to be improved every year, and its reputation has become very highly reputed in the whole of the Middle East. A lot of royal families have decided, and political families from the whole of the Middle East decided to put their children in their schools. And from the idea of the Victoria College, there started to be formed on the same plan a school for girls, and this was the English EGC, the English school uh, college for English girls school, and this is to help the sisters of the boys of the Victoria College to have a school with the same standard like Victoria. Another school was built near to the EGC, and this is the EBS. And this EBS has been decided. This EBS school, English Boys School, was decided to be taken as a school for boys who are from the British community, or the children of the community that cannot pay the expensive tuition fees of Victoria School. So Victoria College, as a very distinguished and very expensive school, education has become a very important point of view, was to have the head which is carefully prepared is better than the head that is full of full to the maximum. The idea of teaching the children and having a special place for play, for music, for sports, definitely has improved very much the quality of the graduates of the Victoria College. As the children go to the school, and you can find that the families decided to come again. So you can have a grandfather who is graduated from Victoria sending his son, and then his grandson will later on join the school. However, the school has seen different periods and different times. It has attended two world wars, and in the First World War, the school premises were taken up to be like a hospital, and therefore the students were sent to elsewhere in Alexandria to receive their education. And then when World War II came, it became a big hazard to transfer. The school was taken as a hospital for the wounded soldiers, and the children or the boys were sent to San Stefano Hotel on the beach. But later on, this was considered to be a bit dangerous. So they decided that they will transfer the school from Alexandria to Cairo, and this was the idea of building the Victoria College in Egypt, in Cairo. It started in the idea with building the school in Shobra for some time, and later on they had their own buildings built in El Maadi, and to be the branch of the school in Cairo. However, the Victoria College in Cairo started its own uh, life as becoming as a sort of a part of Victoria College in Alexandria. And later on, after the war, the school went back to Alexandria, but a lot of students have chosen to enroll in the Victoria College in Cairo, which also had the same ground buildings and a huge playground for different types of sports and exercise. So the school in World War II, after World War II, we have the branch of Cairo. So it's a bit strange because usually the first place is built in the capital, and the second place is built in the second capital, that is Alexandria. But for the very first time, we find that Victoria started in Alexandria, where it stays up till now, and it's built its own branch as a sort of protection for its students who've been transferred from Alexandria to Cairo during the World War II, and later on, the school continued in Cairo up till today. Another date which is very important, particularly, is the year 1956, with the war or tripartite war, and the aggression of the British and the French and the Israelis on Egypt. On this critical period of war, the school have been nationalized and became belonging to the Ministry of Education. The start of education of Arabic language and a lot of syllabuses of the whole Ministry of Education has started since 1956. But yet, the school kept a lot of its own principles, and the students stayed loyal to Victoria College. In the 80s, In the 70s, the school has started accepting girls, but later on, this was changed again, that the school is only for boys. The Victoria College has a lot of graduates, distinguished graduates, and we can mention, for example, King Hussein of Jordan was a student in the Victoria College. A lot of Saudi royal family members have been also students of the Victoria College. Distinguished Sudanese families used to send their children there, and also students from Nigeria. And of the very famous graduates of Victoria College, we can mention, of course, Amin Osman, who was an important minister in the Wafd government. Unfortunately, he was assassinated. The minister, Mansour Hassan, who was also a very important member of the Graduate Society of Victoria. And we cannot talk about Victoria and not remembering two of the most famous graduates of Victoria College, and these are Omar Sharif, the very famous actor, and Edward Said, the professor of comparative literature, and later on one of the great philosophers and thinkers and protector of the Palestinian rights of our life. Definitely, the school has helped these very distinguished people to establish themselves in their lives, and definitely to lead a very successful life, because it worked on the most important motto, which is filling the mind with a lot of information, and not only information, but also to have the complete personality. That is to have a proper education and a proper sports life and a proper socialization. Definitely a very distinguished school that deserves to be respected. And it is definitely important that up till now, the school, whether it's branch in Cairo or the main school in Alexandria, still holds a very important place in the education in Egypt, and still have a very important place in the hearts of its graduates from all over the world. So with this, we come to the end of World of Info. Today, my name is Dr. Amr MABROuk. Dua Muhammad was at the control. And today we presented two interesting books. You Don't Look Like an Arab by Hala Gourani, and the second book by Dalia Asim about Victoria College. Stay tuned always to Radio Cairo, and hopefully we'll see you same time, same station next week.